Hello there everyone again in the Canada Lake Park. At this site is speaking Wysant that tries building. And in this episode, the longest so far in my program I can see, it is about 38 minutes long. We are going to build the main street with a DNA strain part on it and also a very big herbivore enclosure for our lovely dinosaurs to roam about and also for our guests to be more happy. So yeah, I just started by laying out the innovation center that will be the main point of this plaza just at the end, inspired of course by the Jurassic World, and I wanted to implement something because I could just make the main street pretty simple, just a few stripes that will be going around and that's it, adding some planters. But I thought not, I would like to add something more interesting and I decided to add the DNA strain. And that's when the problem started, actually, because I should say that path art isn't my very big strength in Jurassic World Evolution 2, but I made a sandbox test file, test save, so I could practice, find a way, just like the life in 1993, and make this beautiful DNA strain, which for my possibilities, for my skills in this game, is quite good looking. This is one of my best path art actually. I wasn't doing them so often. Just I just put that making something new just the thing that I wasn't doing, just never, because I can't draw actually. Every time when I was trying to draw with the path or with the terrain paint, I wanted to have some brackets, so I always made those little squares just like you get workbench in Minecraft, so to help me recreate the picture as accurate as I can. But this time I tried to make something new, and in my opinion, it turned out really well. So yeah, the idea for this episode is just like I said, to build the main street where you can eat your overpriced food, drink your overpriced also drink, just adore the view of our dinosaurs in the herbivore enclosure, the giant herbivore enclosure. In the background, I wanted to make it as pretty as possible and also with dinosaurs that didn't disappear in a very big enclosure, because actually I would like to keep this park just a little bit like in normal zoo, which are just going into the city or the bigger reserve, but also make it as ethical as possible. I imagine that bringing the dinosaurs back to extinction only because to keep them in enclosures and make money on it isn't a great idea. I should also say that zoos in particular isn't ethically very good idea. Just you go to the wild, capture wild animals and keep them in zoos for the capital to just they make money for you. It's not, especially in those days, it's not very ethical, but today zoos changed. Fortunately, it's not only for people, but it was also for the conservation issue. But we are running out of the build. Going back to it, the idea for the enclosure is to make a very wide valley where our dinosaurs are going to roam with a river-like river-like lake. Because I firstly thought that I will make something like the end of the river and I will cover the other end with the trees, so to make the illusion that the water is just going from underground or just is going through the forest, and because of the trees you cannot see it. But at the end, after I also laid down the gyrosphere tour, which is also be going at this very fine point at the other end of the main street, it looks like just a lake, so I just left it, and in the background you can saw me making this mountainous range to prevent our dinosaurs from going out. Which in the you, I think you shouldn't do that. You should do that only in sandbox, in my opinion. If you are playing challenge mode, only if you are playing how is what called career or chaos fury, yes, because I'm just mumbling around because I played a lot of Planet Zoo before of that, and just a career. I just only listen. The most important word for me in Planet Zoo for now is franchise. Franchise, more franchise. I just adore the people that can manage the whole game, make it look beautiful, because they can make masterpiece with all of those limitations that Planet Zoo has, and it still looks like a normal zoo. But we are still running away. I'm sorry, but I'm new in those voiceovers, so sometimes I can just run away and speak about things that aren't considered to be part of the plan, and that's how we just ended up looking at the building of dinosaur exhibit, talking about the Planet Zoo and the conservation issues. But again, going back, I had also a problem with this build, because I didn't plan it. So just like I said, I planned the mountain range, I planned the river, or I should say the lake, but I didn't plan one thing that I really wanted to add to bring some realism, which is the shelter, which is going to be there if you have seen on the thumbnail, but it was just a little bit of fiddling around. There was just a keeper gate, but you are going to see it in the recording. It was supposed to be a staff entrance to the habitat, to just clean it up, refresh the fruits for our animals, but it just ended up a nighttime enclosure, or the enclosure for the worst times for our dinosaurs. Speaking of them, just also, you can see them in the thumbnail. We are adding beautiful Edmontosaurus, hadrosaur that sadly isn't used so often, is a very typical hadrosaur, I should say. It was also mentioned in Prehistoric Planet. Sadly, I cannot remember now which season was that, but I think for a very long time I will remember the T-Rex hunting scene in this series, which was, yeah, it was great. I should say that Prehistoric Planet was something very big. Knows that everyone that likes dinosaurs, I think. I haven't seen such a good series since the Walking with Dinosaurs. I am very serious right now. This is the best series I have seen about the prehistoric species, because we also remember that what Channel 5 did to the dinosaur with Stephen Fry, and I'm not even going to talk about it right now because it was not very pleasant, I should say. Okay, so, but if you're playing this game for a little while, probably you are just over here for it. I'm placing down some rocks to prevent dinosaurs from walking up this mountain. In the mind, dinosaurs shouldn't be able to go up to this mountain, and also on the other end of the enclosure, where our guests are going to stand and watch them from a very slight view, for a very gentle view, I should say. This is a very good place for making some nice pictures from Jurassic World, Canada, or I should say Canada Lake Park. And yeah, we cannot make, without mods, we cannot make the edges so steep enough to prevent our dinosaur from escaping. So every time we're using that, we cannot use just the brush tool. We cannot just paint the slope to rock and say that, yeah, they call it a day. Dinosaurs cannot clean that, because they can, and that looks silly when the gargantuous Dreadnoughtus is just standing in front of the concrete barrier that's 1 meter high and cannot cross it. So we are using these giant rocks, and again I have to give credit here to Caesar Creates, because you could see me at those template rocks lining that up. I also first time I think saw at this technique at Caesar Creates. I think it was, oh my god, I can't remember now. Prehistoric, I remember, that was Prehistoric SeaWorld. And first time I saw that, it was about the Tarbosaurus habitat, which he was building, and on the back he just laid down all those rocks, and he is continuing this beautiful technique for his habitats. And I thought that, yeah, that's a very good idea also to prevent my dinosaur from coming up. Okay, but I have laid down a lot of rocks. In this episode will be a tons of rocks. And now I'm just thinking about what to do with the entire habitat. You can see me deleting the entire gyrosphere tour because I thought that it was too flat. It was very big. I had this mountain already, but it was very flat. I just wanted to add some terrain differentiation, those difference that make a lot of visual difference. The habitat and the entire park actually could look even better if you had terrain elevations. I would also like to add more for this park because for now it feels just a little bit flat. I know that in this map in Canada, because we are not on the square map, I should say, this is the normal map. If you played the challenge mode, if you were unlocking the entire dinosaur roster in Jurassic World Evolution 2, I'm sure you recognize this map, you played it at least once, and it's not very suitable with its borders. I also was talking about that in the previous episode. And yeah, it wouldn't be very pleasant job. It will be hard, but I think I can manage that and build a park that will be visually interesting from above and on the ground level. Speaking of the ground level, now I'm laying down some rocks. Again, tons of rocks, and that's the part when the zooey thing comes in. I wanted to make those patches of rocks and just lay down the entire foliage for our dinosaurs to eat because if you're going to the zoo, especially if you are in front of the herbivore habitat, you can see mostly that the entire foliage is just destroyed because animals are just going back and forth, they're just eating those, and just a little bit of time. Give some zebras a time, or also just laying down those traps that I was talking about. And zebras can destroy the entire foliage in the entirety of habitat. There is no foliage. And you can also, I think I was, that was the giraffe enclosure. I was in the zoo, I saw the giraffe enclosure, and also you can see on the tree trunks those, I don't know how to say it in English, I'm so sorry, just like the armor. Something to prevent the animals from just destroying the tree, eating out from it. And if you have some plants, you wanted to make the habitat more green, they're usually higher so the animals cannot eat from them, and they're using some very interesting planters to keep the animals away of the shrubs so the habitat looks more lush, more natural. And I'm also going to get this over here. You can see me that the shrubs, the food is only around those rocks. I haven't any issues with the animals, with the hitboxes that the animals couldn't eat that. I just were starving to death. Fortunately, I didn't get that. I think that I wouldn't. But still, the entire habitat is going to be just sand and dirt. So that's to make it just a little bit more realistic, but let's be honest, Edmontosaurus is going to make a lot more trouble than ordinary zebra or the giraffe, not speaking of the two species, not species, two individuals, I should say, of the dreadnoughts that are going to be in here. Okay, so I think in here I just recognized that I forgot to add the shelter, and it was a very unpleasant, I should say, also. It was not very rewarding when I saw that habitat is laid down, is looking nice, and I think, oh my God, I have to add a shelter. And not a small shelter, because we are going to have sauropods here that are I think, yeah, one of the biggest land animals that ever lived, because if I remember correctly, current biggest animal on planet is the blue whale, which lives now. But those who ruled the land was the Argentinosaurus for now, I think. But I have to check because I'm just talking, just like you can hear, I'm just talking I didn't prepare, so you should check that out. You should go to the Google and search the biggest land animal that ever lived, because that's also very important while searching such information. and you can see me using this monorail roof technique to make the exhibit suitable for the Dreadnoughtus to come in. And later in the video, you could see me use rocks to just delete those columns that could prevent my dinosaurs to go further into the shelter, and I just used rocks. I know that hitboxes didn't allow animals to go in. I just used that on the mountains and in the place where the people can look at our beautiful dinosaurs. But still, I have to, if I would like to make it interesting and make it just logic, because even though the Dreadnoughtus is such a big creature, make it wouldn't be able to destroy those big columns, I think, and if it did, it would be a catastrophic. And I remember that moment. I was just praying that the gate. I wanted to make a double gate, and yeah, it was very good. The gate didn't destroy my columns. I just added that in for making some interest, because still, those are herbivores. But a panic herd of Edmontosaurus can also make a lot of mess, which was also described in the Jurassic Park book, in the first book, when the Alan and kid just walked to the main lake where there was Apatosaurus, there was Hadrosaurus, Maiasaura, I think, in those enclosures. I can't remember for good now because it was a long time ago when I read this book, and they were all scared by the Tyrannosaurus on the hunting, and they were just running away. You could also see the other scene in Jurassic Park movie actually, but it was the Gallimimus, the scene they are flocking this way, and after that the T-Rex hunting down Gallimimus just left in our imaginations forever. Especially for me, a Jurassic Park fan, that's one of the most favorite scenes actually in the entire franchise. I think that one of my best is going to be the ending scene where the T-Rex roar in the main visitor center, and also the opening scene with the Brachiosaurus. You know what I mean, welcome to Jurassic Park, etc. And yeah, I just think about all the good days where only thing I could do is to watch Jurassic Park and be frightened on the way of the Velociraptors. By the way, I was just sometimes thinking how they managed to capture all the raptors, because we are saying that they were closed in the paddock. Actually, in the book it is mentioned in the book that the raptors had paddock, but then it was this, they changed their localization. I should say they changed their localization to the pen so they can just easily manage them. I think that in movie there was the same thing, but still, it was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 velociraptors and big animals in Jurassic Park, as big as the Utah raptor, just standing normally. They could see with no problems to the adult man in his eyes. So yeah, there was about 3 raptors in this pen, little pen in the movie, and just they managed to carry them. But okay, that's the movie fiction. We also seen the T-Rex escape scene. So many people say that's not having also really much sense, which is also an issue for me, I should say, because at the first scene you can see T-Rex just walking casually from his enclosure, and then you can see Grant and Lex. I think that, yeah, because I watched the movie, sorry, a very long time ago. It was Lex, I think, that was just at the top of this concrete barrier to prevent Rex from escaping, actually. But okay, just going back again to the build. Now I'm just making the thing that I was. So yeah, from the beginning, I should say now on the screen I'm making things that always prevented me from making any path art, because filling the gaps and preventing the path from this ugly clipping. So yeah, I had some issues. You could see here, you could see that here, that sometimes when I just connected the paths, the part that I really wanted to stay, it was just disappearing, or just a very bad clipping. It wasn't good, looking good. It was actually really bad. I don't like that much. and I was just staying with very simple paths and very simple design to prevent myself. But this time I tried. Uh, I just took a little bit more time, a little bit more patience, just to see if the paths are connected well, if they are not clipping ugly. And also, there's a one tip from me actually. If you are walking with path, those connection points between paths, just you're in the game, you're building a path which is two maximum lengths of a path. In the middle, you get this point when the paths are connecting, and this is your best friend actually. The path will automatically snap to it, and if you are filling the gaps, it will also prevent the other path for just clipping in something further which you cannot also see. And that's very helpful. That just rescued my path art, rescued my skills in that. If it wasn't a thing, I I would be in trouble for a very long time, I should say. Okay, now I think I'm going to build this so-called stairs down to the gyrosphere tour, which is also, I would like to add this in Plaza for our little stairs. There will be a square, and in will be this place for our nature to grow, for some rocks to make it look more, just a little bit of natural, just to break that great concrete. Owen is just saying something over there because I didn't turn him off. I also should do that later. And later, you can see that the plaza of the gyrosphere tour will be empty. It is because, firstly, I will be obvious here. I hadn't any idea to do so, and this video was still quite long. I had, I think, over 1.5 hours of recording, and I have limited time. I just got to make it into the editing quickly, making the thumbnail and everything around this another video quickly. So it is how it is. I think that now I can say it right now. In at the end of the series, we are going also to make episode, the last episode before the tour, that everything will be tidying up and all the mistakes will be corrected if possible. And in the future episodes, probably we can add a little enclosure over there, a little paddock for, I don't know, probably also for some little carnivores or a little herbivore for our guests to see. And speaking of that, in the first episode, you could see me building the Stegosaurus habitat, and I'm I'm happy with it, especially with this so-called shelter that I built for them. And now I have idea what I could do over there. Over there, there could be something like, I don't know, mini zoo for smaller dinosaurs, just like Dryosaurus, Homocephaly, and using this path that I'm using actually right now to line down the place for our shops to make it look, to differ it from the entirety of the park, so make it look just like a secluded section with smaller herbivores where you can just walk to the fence and look at this, probably pet them. Of course not, because if just for some security reasons, I couldn't let a man to have some fun even with the homocephaly this game, because I think it's not a good idea. Also, I'm not a fan of any shows using animals. I also have very mixed feelings about the feeding attractions in the zoo if it's good for animals, but at this point I should say I have no knowledge about that, about the animal welfare with that kind of stuff, so I'm stopping this thing right now. But I know in my parks there wouldn't be something like a petting zoo, but probably so I could figure that out. I can make some lore to make it happen in my park and be as well good for our animals and also for our guests. And probably this could be a very big enclosure with very small herbivores or just herbivores. That should be herbivores, because speaking of Jurassic Park, we are also speaking a lot of the original Jurassic Park film and book in this video. Jurassic Park showed us that you can you should never underestimate a dinosaur, because one of the biggest nightmares for the entire park in the book, besides velociraptors, which are technically Deinonychus, but the author, dear Michael Crichton, decided that velociraptor, I think, sounded cooler, and that's the thing why we have velociraptors now everywhere. Just the name, because the animal is just, I don't know, scientifically not pretty, I should say. It is far from that we can see, and the good representation of the velociraptors we could also see in the prehistoric planet, which had a lot of screen time. The the team of that series gave this species a lot of love that it deserves, and I think made something that it's very difficult, because they made this velociraptor. This is just, I should say, turkey, more fit turkey, an animal that people can can adore. It's just beautiful for them. It's very interesting. It's not that, I should say right now, monster, just like we've seen that in Jurassic Park and Jurassic World series, and it's just menacing. It's a very beautiful creature, and the series gave them a lot of love, which they deserve, which they didn't get, I think, ever. I haven't seen a good documentary which haven't I haven't seen actually a documentary. Probably I have no knowledge, but I never seen a documentary that didn't make a velociraptor and an evil animal. Also, in Walking with Dinosaurs with Nigel Marven, one of my favorite men in the dinosaur community, I should say, probably also yours, it was also showed as a ferocious animal. Even I think also there was a scene when Nigel with the entire crew were just running away from them. But yeah, still, Prehistoric Planet did a very great job, I should say. Okay, but back to the build. And now I am going to add some decorations to the visitor center, because I really hate hitboxes in this game. The hitboxes are the main thing that I sometimes think that I will going to add some mods, especially the free build that just deletes the entirety of the hitboxes from everything, and you can just make normal path and track crossing. You can lay the path down from the buildings, and it just good, nice and clean. But I don't think it will happen in the nearest future. For now, I'm just playing vanilla, enjoying it. I very like that. And also thinking around how to hide some very unpleasant things is giving me a lot of fun actually. It's very interesting, and I wanted to hide those patches that was made because of the hitboxes of the visitor center between it and the path. Okay, now just you can see, this is the other part of the video actually, because the build was so long, I was so tired of placing tons and tons of rocks. I needed a break. I came back to this park another day, and I thought, yeah, it's time for customizing buildings, because just like said, later this will be a nightmare to make. I don't like that much when it was firstly, how I should say that, when Frontier tell us that we will be able to customize our buildings. I was excited. It was something new besides those modular pieces that were ready-made by the Frontier base from the Jurassic World. Later, from the Return to Jurassic Park, we got our own. The area got these very nice little shops that really, I think, fit the Jurassic Park era. I fell in love with them. I really like them. Were small and they were making their things. But now we got these customizable buildings. We got this small module, we got this medium, and we got large. It was a game changer at the start, but now I can even see the top creators that are calling the entire park down after placing all of those planters, all of those decorations. and buildings that during the tour, they can see that they didn't customize the buildings and they're all just white and everywhere is sushi actually. So I wanted to get it over here. This part, I was thinking about if to just let this part of the video in because it's just placing some decorations, but I think to make it more flexible actually, to make you see how I was looking around with the pieces to, for example, just you can see, hide the back of the buildings, which is also a menace in Jurassic World Evolution 2. If you are making a park in a very tight space, you can also use the forest for a brush, which is also preventing a lot of view, but I really prevent to use concrete barriers and those Jurassic Park barriers. Oh, and there is also one thing, you can see a lot of people with this toilet, which is really busy actually. I placed another on the other end of the main street, but I think that the people all have to go to the toilet right now as quickly as possible, and they're just standing over there. Later in the video you can see me just looking at them being like, well, okay, if you gotta go, we gotta go. If you want to make it over here, I'm not talking because I have to building, because I have a lot to do. You can also see I'm adding this nature section in front of this Biosyn building, which is going to be the underground system, just like it will be a subway underground system for our guests to just make their way quickly and in the most comfortable way from the one place in the park, from the one section. That will be the flying section with pterosaurs, another section which we are working right now, that will be the land animals, and the last one which will be the aquatics. And I also was thinking about how about adding monorail, because we are building this in, I think, modern and Jurassic World style, but I saw how many I should do to make the monorail in this park work, to prevent it from looking just, you can see those very big top, the very high thing actually. Oh, I can see just looking at the guest thinking what is going on, just trying to destroy that. I had something like that once because my guest for some reason wanted to dance around dance around the decorations next to the Edmontosaurus enclosure, and it was very not good. I ended up deleting the decorations and the problem was solved. But yeah, going back to the monorail, you can see that those monorail tracks are just huge and destroying a lot of views. At this point, I think that yeah, in the future, if I would like to make something with monorail, I should plan the best way the entire park firstly, to get everything done, to make everything clean, so the monorail don't come at your eyes, especially when you are playing challenge mode, because I think that's the most recent thing. That's the game mode where that thing is the most reasonable, because you need that for the transport rating, and you're just laying down those tracks everywhere you can to make it 100% and making those 5 stars as quickly as possible. But it's not a thing in sandbox, and I think that would be too much work for me. I couldn't have time, couldn't have plans, and I haven't space actually over here now to make the monorail work. So if you would like to do that, you should plan everything ahead. I really recommend trying to build park in sections, bigger sections, and then using the monorail you can just drag it along to the place where you like, and at the end just connect everything, and it should be looking quite nice. For example, if you are just making an enclosure, you would like to make a beautiful view with the monorail in the background, just build the enclosure and lay the monorail actually, and later then in the build you can connect that. still walking around those guests. And yeah, it is going, this video, very long video, is going to the end, just adding some lamps to make it more pretty actually. And we're going to the cinematics. For the last part, you can see me just looking if the view is clear, ending up deleting some rocks and one concrete barrier. Sometimes I really hate those delete mode in this game. It's not very, it's not delicate, I should say. Sometimes laying some smaller rocks to make it look more pretty and make a better view for my guests that they cannot see, sadly, but I can see. I can, that makes me happy, so I made that. And also, at the last part of the video, you can just see me working with the decorations looking at the top, because I really wanted to decorate also the DNA strain, but I think that the video is going to be too long for now, and I have to end right now. And then enjoy the cinematics. Bye.